Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello, Dave here from toy-polloi. Now, a question I get asked a lot is how and where do I find my toys and how do I find them so cheaply? If you look around me, you can see I've got quite a lot of toys on display here, and most of them I don't pay very much money for. So this video is going to be some sort of hints and tips on how I go about collecting and finding these toys. So my first tip is something that I'm going to probably go on about a lot during this video, and that is to be patient. Don't just rush out and try and buy toys because you'll end up paying a lot for them. Sometimes when collecting toys you just have to be patient. Things take a long time to turn up and turn up for the right price. If you want to collect Star Wars toys, to be honest, today you could go onto eBay and you could buy every single Star Wars figure that was ever released, and you could buy them very easily because there are loads of people selling them, but you're going to pay an awful lot of money. If you want to collect them and you want to collect them cheaply, just be patient. I started collecting my Star Wars figures again about 15 years ago, and I finally got the last figure in the last year, and that was Yak Face, because throughout my collecting time I keep seeing Yak Face, and people are, in the old days people would be asking £60–70 for him, and more recently the price has gone up to £100–150 for Yak Face. And I know they're not, for some people they think it's a rare figure, but when you're toy collecting you see Yak Face all the time, and I just wasn't willing to pay that much money. So 15 years after I started my Star Wars figure collection, I finally found Yak Face. And he cost me £1.50 because I knew that there were a lot of Yak Faces out there, and I knew at some point I would find him. So here's an example of patience. 15 years in collecting, I finally got the last figure, and that's what you need to be, very patient. So people ask me, do I use eBay? And the answer is, of course I use eBay. It's a great tool for finding and collecting toys. But I have to say, I don't tend to buy things like Star Wars toys or Transformers off eBay because prices are always really high. I tend to buy the collectibles that people aren't looking for, or I look for lots of items where people are selling a bulk lot of toys that they don't really know what they are, and in there you'll just find the odd gem of an item. So I'll buy a bulk lot just to find one small figure. So eBay is still very useful, but if you want to go for Star Wars stuff, Transformers stuff, or the big names, you're always going to pay a premium, and there'll always be someone else wanting it who will bump the price up, so you'll end up paying over the odds for something that you can find elsewhere for a lot cheaper. A lot of the toys I just find out in the wild, so not in any specific place, but in sort of charity shops or second-hand shops. And I spend a lot of time rummaging through these places, especially charity shops. You'd be amazed what people give to charity because they don't really know the worth of them. Often you can go in a charity shop and you'll find nothing at all of interest, but sometimes you'll go in and you'll find a real gem of an item, something that you'll have been searching for ages. And because it's a charity shop, prices will be low. I generally try and give a little bit more. If I know the item is worth more than the charity shop is asking, I would always donate a bit more because it just feels a bit mean not to give when it's a charity. And second-hand shops, there are quite a few of them around where I live, and you see them all over the place. People take in stuff and sell it to these sort of second-hand shops, and then that shop marks it up a bit. And there's a shop near me that always got toys and stuff in it, and quite often you'll find toys for next to nothing. Recently had a load of Star Wars figures, and I managed to pick up a few last 17 figures for sort of £3 or £4 each, which is a bargain compared to the eBay prices. Now, something else that I often do is don't buy mint and complete vehicles, especially if it's Star Wars stuff. Recently I picked up a bare shell of a B-Wing, and with a little bit of sort of ingenious searching and asking people and asking other collectors, I've managed to find all the bits, and I've completed this B-Wing. B-Wings at the moment, if you look on eBay, you're talking sort of £40. I think in total this has cost me about £20 finding all the parts and getting it all fixed up. So don't be put off if you see a broken ship. It still can be very useful, and you can still fix it up. And even if you can't fix it up properly, a ship with a few bits missing is still a nice toy to have. So just don't be put off if it's not mint. There's nothing wrong with a played with toy. They still look great, and they're still very nice to have on display. And as a sort of continuation to that, I could say that I would class my type of collecting as wabi-sabi collecting. Wabi-sabi is a Japanese term which means finding perfection in imperfection. And I think that's really what my toys are. None of my toys are mint or new. I just don't see the point in that. Mine have all been played with and been well used. So they had a bit of a life and a bit of history to them. And that gives them an extra bit of charm. So if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. It's still a nice toy to have. I think you can get a bit bogged down in trying to get the most perfect, the most beautiful item that's never been touched and never been used. And you'll always end up paying a huge amount of money for that. If you're happy with things a little bit rough around the edges, they're always going to be a lot cheaper than the mint perfect examples that the high-end collectors go for. Another good source for finding sort of vintage toys are flea markets and antiques fairs. Flea markets are particularly good because it's an awful lot of people there selling stuff and not selling toys in general, just selling bits of everything. So quite often you'll find a stall that's selling a whole range of different things, and on one side there may be a small box with a few old toys in it, and that's where you can find some gems. If there's a stall that's actually selling toys, I sort of try to avoid them, because the person who's got that stall knows the worth of what they're selling. But someone who's just selling other stuff and happens to have a few toys may not know the worth of what they've got. Example of that is, went to a flea market recently and picked up a bag of Star Wars figures. There were about 8 figures in this bag and I paid £5 for it. One of the figures was this guy. And if you don't know what that is a tri-logo Boba Fett. So he cost me less than £1. Current value on these is somewhere between sort of £40 and £60. So an absolute bargain and a nice addition to my Star Wars figure collection. So flea markets are a little bit hit and miss. You're not always going to find toys there, and sometimes you can go and find absolutely nothing. But the odd time you can find a gem of an item and it will cost you next to nothing. I also go to toy fairs, but not the sort of toy fairs that you would imagine that I would go to. I don't go to the big sort of Comic-Cons and things like that, where the sellers there, again, know what they're selling. They'll be selling lots of action figures and lots of toys and putting high prices on them because they know exactly what they are. The sort of toy fairs I go to are ones that generally are about dinky toys or railways or trains, stuff like that, because the people who buy and sell dinky and trains know the prices of the dinky cars and the trains, but they'll be buying bulk lots from people, and chances are in those bulk lots there will be some toys that I like, and because they don't specialise in those toys, they don't know the price of them again. So you can go to a train fair and chances are there'll be a stall which will have a rummage pot at one end which will be full of great action figures, and you'll be able to find some really nice stuff, but for a lot less than you would have to pay for it if you were going to a sort of specific action figure type toy fair. So again, it's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes you go and you'll find nothing, but a lot of the time you can go and you can pick up some really nice items for next to nothing. If you've watched my channel, you'll have seen my Imperial Army, which is something I've been building over the last few years, and often with those figures I pay possibly £1, maybe £2 at most for each figure. And that's a question a lot of people ask, is how do I find those so cheaply? Well, I've already told you about some of the sort of sources of them, but also if you really look into the army, there's a lot of figures that are like these two guys here, and these, if you look at them now, they look pretty good, but if I show you them close up, this guy is missing a hand, this guy is missing one hand, and also both the ends of his feet have gone. But if you build them all up into an army, they still look great. So these figures, I can't remember how much I paid for them, but it'd be less than £1 because they are in such bad condition, and most people wouldn't see any worth in them. But if you're building an army, figures in poor condition can still look great, and still look great on display. Another good tip is that you don't have to collect what everybody else is collecting. I know it's nice to collect Star Wars stuff, and I do enjoy collecting Star Wars stuff, and I know it's nice to collect Transformers, but those are two real big sort of hitters, and there's an awful lot of people out there trying to collect them. But there are also a whole load of toy lines out there that are less collectible, but still have some very nice figures. Recently I've done a video showing you the Pirates of Darkwater figures that you can see here. Here's a carded Pirates of Darkwater figure. Now this is a toy line that I watched the show as a kid but never actually got any of them, and so I thought it would be nice to get some recently. And this, you can buy carded figures for as little as £3, loose figures for as little as £3, and it's a really nice line to collect. So just remember, you can collect the expensive stuff from the expensive lines, but there are plenty of other toy lines out there that are just as nice. And also, if they've got a connection to your child or to you, you'll have just as much fun collecting them, and it's not going to break the bank. And lastly, I'm going to say it again, be patient. If you're not patient, you'll end up paying over the odds for stuff, especially if you're on eBay or places like that, because there'll be an item that you want and there's going to be someone else who will want exactly the same item and who will bid it up, and you'll end up paying 2-3 times what it's actually worth. Just be patient, especially with Star Wars stuff. There's loads of it out there, and if you think you're not going to get one again, you will always get one again. It will come round. So just, take a step back, set yourself a budget that you know you're happy with, and if, bid that, and if it goes above it, forget about it. There'll be another one in a few weeks' time, and chances are you'll get it for a lot less. I've bid on stuff before that I thought, oh, I really want that, and the bidding's gone way above what I would have wanted to pay for it, so I've left it. A week later, I bought the item for a fraction of that price, and I felt much better about it. So just by being a little bit patient and taking a step back, you can still get the items you want. There'll always be the items there. Things come around and people have them. There's a lot of this stuff in people's collections, and there's a lot of this stuff still out there just to be found. So don't get sort of too excited by it and just want to spend money. Wait, and you can get it for a lot cheaper. So really be very patient. So there we have it. They're my tips for collecting, and they're what I try to do every time I collect. I still get excited by things, and I still try and bid on stuff, and I bid more than I want, and I offer more money than I think. But on the whole, if you can try and stick to sort of some set rules and be patient and just keep looking, there's plenty of stuff out there, and you still find stuff in the most surprising places. So, just enjoy hunting for toys. That's what I get the most fun out of, is hunting for toys. And sometimes the hunt is better than actually having the figure in your collection. Sometimes I've got them and then thought, actually I don't really like it. It would have been much more fun if I still didn't have it and was still looking for it. So I hope those tips and sort of tricks have been useful to you. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter and Facebook.